Welcome to Love Notes by Carrie Margaret. Today I'm reviewing the fantastic book Happy Together by James and Suzanne Pawlowski. The subtitle of the book is Using the Power of Positive Psychology to Build Love That Lasts. This is an amazing book pulling together positive psychology and research about creating sustaining, loving, passionate relationships. So let's get right into some of the big ideas to help you build love that lasts. Some of the main ideas to help you build love that lasts, you need to cultivate positive emotions in your relationship. You essentially want to be a PR agent for your partner in your mind and cultivate a positive image of your partner, and then go about cultivating different positive emotions like appreciation and gratitude. And in particular, they get into a lot appreciating your partner's particular character strengths that you can find out through looking at your VIA score. And another huge idea is developing harmonious and healthy passion versus obsessive passion. And remembering to seek out, to savor, and to celebrate the good times rather than just focusing on fixing the problems. So let's get right into some of the big ideas here. Before we get into, let's start with passion. Yeah, let's start with passion. Okay, so how to cultivate harmonious passion. So you want to work to develop greater trust with your partner and be more in tune to what he or she is feeling and what he or she may need. So trust is really the foundation of all relationships, and it being any way that where you're emotionally shut down with your partner actually comes from an absence of trust within you. And trust can come from tuning to your partner, turning towards them, tolerance of them, understanding, non-defensive responding, empathy. This is a really huge point because a lot of times when intimacy breaks down in the relationship, or sex breaks down in the relationship, it really has to do with a lack of trust and a lack of safety. So that's a pretty fantastic tip there. And then they go in and they talk about how this is really interesting, how they bring up that, obsessively passionate relationships, they can actually end up in really corrosive behaviors that undermine the resources of your relationship and your ability to work through challenges. So obsessive passion is really a lot about it's like kind of that desperate hunger and need and longing to be carried away. A lot of times you might, some people have already identified that they might have issues with codependence or looking for things outside of themselves to fill them up. And when you get into this whole thing of love sickness and where the other person is your world, research actually shows that lovesick relationships and obsessively passionate relationships are as damaging to a relationship as having no passion at all. So, the main goal of relationship is really to help to support your partner and for them to support you to really shine in being the best version of yourself. And when we get into behaviors where we're feeling like an obsessive need to be with them, or the jealousy or controlling behaviors, that's actually undermining It's undermining the relationship, and over the long haul ends up in more destructive behaviors that and can sow the seeds of the destruction in the relationship itself. Now, I'm a huge advocate for passion. Huge. The beautiful thing about this book and this work is, they talk about how you can kind of, I like to use the word, lean into your passion and create something that is harmonious, rather than going sort of the way that, a lot of Hollywood movies or songs want to bring this into this like obsessive, lovesick kind of addictive passion. Where you're daydreaming the whole day about the other person, and it can like end up being like so obsessive that you kind of lose yourself in the relationship. And we'll get into a little bit more how to identify if you get into the obsessive roles and in relationships, because you can turn that around and turn it into some really juicy, amazing, harmonious passion that's much more sustainable and much more fun and a lot less destructive for both of you, and also, not as likely to lead you to separation or divorce. So another concept in how to cultivate harmonious passion is you want to make sure you don't lose yourself in your relationship. You want to beware of like constantly thinking about your partner, being obsessive about your partner. You want to keep up your friendships and your activities. So one of the ways to like balance out the obsessiveness, because it's kind of normal to feel all those butterflies and all of those, you actually have like hormones that are rushing through your body when you're going through limerence in the beginning stages of romance, and that can really turn into almost like a drug addiction. You have high levels of dopamine and oxytocin and what was the other one? Norepinephrine, like running through your body, and it can create like a real kind of emotional high. But one way to counteract that is to get, when you're passionate about another activity besides just your main romance, like if you're passionate about playing tennis with a friend, if you're passionate about theater, if you're passionate about learning and going to a book reading group, if you're passionate about fishing, if you're whatever your passions are, like really diving into your passions. So you is one way to sort of counteract that, because you're actually balancing out your chemistry too, and you're attaching some of these hormones and actual brain chemicals and body chemicals that you're experiencing to your activities, and not just your main partner. So there's less of a threat if something happens to relationship, and can kind of keep it passionate, but keep it a little bit more even keel and sustainable for the long term. So another thing in terms of developing harmonious passion as you get into later stages of your relationship. So once that those chemicals kind of, because this isn't like new love happens all the time. You have this like surge of like body chemicals. You're like in love, thrilled with your partner, and then when you get through the other stages, when you kind of get used to them, then all of a sudden you like see them doing things that aren't as attractive as before, and you can get settled into the relationship. One way to reignite that passion is by doing new and interesting activities together. So it can be just as like, and be like even as simple as like sitting down on your laptops together and like being productive together. You get like nice dopamine hits when you like accomplish stuff together. Or it could be, doing outdoor activities together where you're getting lots of good like serotonin, like, and outdoor, like out in the sunshine, and going to the beach together, engaging in an activity like that, because you're going to get all of those kinds of chemical hits from those types of positive activities to sort of reignite your relationship. So one way actually to balance out both in the beginning and later on is to sort of diversify your passions, so that the relationship stays more harmonious. The other thing that they talk about in this, that the problems with this obsessive versus harmonious passion is, a lot of these things can be really ingrained from our childhood. Like relational habits are pretty hard to break, or can feel challenging, because they're sort of a function of like really deep-seated needs and expectations that happen in our childhood and then come out again in adulthood. And so like our attachment models that we experience, secure attachment, meaning that we feel safe in our relationships and we're looking for a win-win. So we have more harmoniously passionate relationships. That's a more securely attached relationship. Or anxious attachers tend to be worried if their partner loves them back. Avoidant attachment people tend to push away. They push away to maintain their independence. And then avoidant and anxious tend to go back between the two. So one of the really interesting things there that you can kind of balance out your attachment style. Well, this is actually Carrie Margaret putting in like a little idea, is by, if you're feeling avoidant, by leaning in. If you're feeling anxious, by leaning out, and balancing yourself out with other passions to keep things more harmonious. So cultivating positive emotions and savoring. This was like a huge idea in the book. Wow. So that was so good. Let me see if I see. All right, I don't see all of my notes related to that, so I'll just go off the cuff and with positive emotions. But, basically you will be creating neuroplasticity. You'll be like the neuroplasticity, and new neural circuits with your partner will be more about positive reinforcements. So actually in your body over the long term, you start to feel like safer. You create a safer feeling in your body and in your nervous system when you're cultivating more, positive emotions with your partner. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you want to be that PR agent that is like really thinking about that your partner is really there to show up for your highest good, for a win-win for you both. So you're looking to look for moments where they're doing loving things. Look for moments where rather than looking for all of the problems, you don't want to avoid the problems, but rather than looking for all the problems, making a conscious effort to be more in appreciation and in gratitude. And then part of that is savoring. That's one of my favorite topics in the book. For example, with gratitude. Or with appreciation with your partner. When your partner says something like, "Oh, you look amazing, you look so beautiful," really taking the moment to take that in and receive that. So in every moment with your partner, there is the giving and the receiving, and there is a richness that comes for your partner when you're able to receive how they stand up to love you, how they stand up to be grateful for you and to appreciate you. And savoring works really well with lovemaking too. It's really savoring that moment together, savoring the experience together, feeling into it, letting that kind of linger in in the moment. It's almost like if you eat an incredible meal out, the difference between like rushing through the meal or like just eating like a hot dog or a hamburger in your car, or really like sitting down and like savoring food. This is a huge thing in a lot of sensuality classes and sexuality classes. Actually, you know, some of the most simple things you can do is just start to appreciate with your senses the pleasure of like your partner touching you. Like, what does it feel like when your partner puts your arm around you, and really savoring that feeling. And then in the moment when they're trying to give something to you, whether it's a gift or an appreciation, really receiving that. So savoring is huge, and it really helps people be more in collaboration and have more sexual connection and empathy. And let's see, the next thing is character, which is one of my favorites too. So one of the main ideas behind their work is that you want to have a relationship where you are both becoming better versions of yourself. It is this idea of rather than requiring that the other person be what we need, you work together so that they can be more of who they are. And that frees us to be more of who we are. So we're like, it's really looking for like at a perspective of like being committed to each other's growth and well-being, and taking a supportive perspective for like your partner to do your own growing. So you want to really like focus on and identify and look at and work with the things that are already great in you and in your partner. And one of the suggestions that they do in terms of building character, your own and your partner's, is the VIA, that's VIA Strengths Survey. If you go and take a VIA score, if you look that up online, VIA Strengths Survey, and then have your partner do it, then you can start to look for, you know, moments. For example, my signature strength in the VIA, my number one strength is love. So if your partner has love, for example, as their top strength, you can look for like moments where they're showing a lot of love or receiving a lot of love, either like giving or receiving, and you can kind of, you know, notice and point out, wow, that was a really loving thing that you just did. You know, and in pointing those things out to your partner is really going to feel validated in their existing strengths. So it builds up their existing beautiful character strengths, and which really builds them up as a person, and helps them to feel really good about themselves, and also to exercise more of those strengths into the world, so that your partner can turn around and be a better version of themselves from your relationship. And this really gets into the whole idea of having more interdependence instead of codependence. You know, that your relationship makes you a better person, not a weaker person. And they brought up in the book, looking for the quote here, so good, the idea that in your relationship, you should feel like, you know, that the relationship makes you want to be a better person, not that they complete you. And your partner should feel like, you know, your relationship makes them want to be a better person, not that you complete them. So fantastic. It's a fantastic book. You know, one of the top books that I recommend for you to check out in terms of building a relationship of lasting love and harmonious passion. One of my favorite things. Thanks so much for checking out Love Notes with Carrie Margaret.